Okay, we are wrapping up the acronym of STAIN today. STAIN, for those of you who are just joining in, is an acronym that we use to identify root causes for inflammation. Many of us are walking around with chronic inflammation, and we may or may not know it. Inflammation is what drives a lot of our diseases that we have around now, chronic diseases at that. So if you're battling with autoimmune, mental health concerns, metabolic concerns, you're struggling with perhaps connection, you're struggling with losing weight, or so on and so forth. These things are often triggered by an underlying chronic inflammation. And again, chronic inflammation is not a root cause, so we need to go deeper, and that's where STAIN comes in. So S is for stress, T is for toxins, A is for allergens, I is for infections, and N is for nutrition, which we're going to talk about now. Nutrition, there's a lot of dogma, there's a lot of marketing ploys, there's a lot of political agendas around food. So I want to steer clear of what to eat on specifics, that is. What works for one person may not work for the next, right? The way I eat may not be what is helpful for you. So it doesn't matter what the superfood is out there. That makes no difference at all. The question is does it work for you? And how do you know if it works for you? Well, a way to know is how's your mental health? How's your ability to process and respond emotionally and mentally? How's your skin, hair, and nails doing? How's your vision doing? How's your oral microbiome, your oral cavity? How's the health of that? How about your GI tract or your nervous system? These are all excellent ways to determine on whether or not something is working for you. Look at it from that standpoint versus because somebody says this is the food for you to eat. No. What works for you? So I'm going to give you some tips here. I'm going to leave it to 3 tips because I wanted to actually talk a little bit more in depth with them and keep time in mind. So tip number 1 is, what state are you in when you're eating? Are you in a fight or flight state? This will make a difference because it doesn't matter if you're eating a super healthy food or not. If you're in a heavily stressed state of fight or flight, that sympathetic state, then you are more likely to react to that food even if you would otherwise do well with it. The reason behind that is when we're in that sympathetic state, resources are shunted away from digestion, so you're not able to digest properly. And of course, you're going to feel poorly when you can't digest properly. So the objective here is to be in a parasympathetic state, the rest and digest. How do you get into that state when you're busy running around? Well, one is actually take time to eat a meal. Sit down and take a time. 20 minutes. Start there. Practice gratitude, practice prayer. Perhaps it's deep breathing. Any one of those things can help shift you into a parasympathetic state. All right, now the next thing, that one was what state are you eating in? The next one I want to talk with you about is observation. Learning to observe the feedback that our body gives us is an important aspect. When we can really tune in to this on what we observe, this can be motivating for us in determining what are we going to have more of versus what are we going to have less of. So kind of like I was just mentioning before with the whole state part of that and calming yourself down. When we're observing in this, when we're in a calm state, it makes it easier for us to do this. But observing is, how do I feel while I'm eating my food? And when I say feel, mental, physical, and emotional. How do I feel after I eat my food? And this isn't always negative, right? It might be what I ate gave me energy, and not just a rush of energy. It gave me long, sustainable energy. I didn't crash a few hours later. That's a really good sign that what you're eating is in part working for you. Other things to consider is, am I getting any like heartburn, reflux, belching within 15 to 30 minutes or an hour later? If that's happening, then that's saying what you're eating is in part causing a problem of some type. It might be digestion, or it might be actually a sensitivity to what you're eating, one of those two. So start paying attention. Again, think mental, think physical, and think emotional. All of those make a difference. The third one that I want, and final one that I want to talk with you about, is your motivating factor to eat what you're eating, your choices, in other words. The why behind this, it's not unusual for us to be disconnected, and now we're using food as a way to cope. And when we're using a food as a way to cope, we tend to gravitate towards two types of foods. One could be those crunchy foods where we really got to there's a lot of crunch, like chips, things like that, nuts and seeds. These things, that tells me that you're likely dealing with higher amounts of stress and you're not coping with it well. That is helpful to know the why you would gravitate towards those foods. Others of us may go on a different side, and it may be really soft foods, mushy or smooth or creamy foods. Usually when we're gravitating towards those, we're needing connection of some type. Now, this might be that we're feeling lonely, isolated, or perhaps we're grieving, we're feeling sad or depressed or disconnected. When we're using food for either the stress or for that need of connection of some type of coping way, then what we're doing is we're avoiding the areas that really need our attention. So it may be that we need to really work on communication, or we really need to work on stress management, or we need to work on sleep and other areas. When we're using food as our coping mechanism and we're neglecting other areas, we're only deepening, or rather worsening, our state of health. So being aware that observational is going to help you with this part of it. This isn't to invoke shame on people or to make you feel guilty. It's strictly to bring about awareness, because with awareness, you have more control. You now have a better way to take control and reclaim your health and happiness by becoming aware as the first step. So our why, this one can be very helpful to work with someone on, because this can be an emotional topic. This can be a difficult topic or an upsetting topic. Work with a coach or a counselor, but it's important that the one that you choose has an understanding on what drives behaviors, has an understanding on emotional eating and the physiology of cravings, and knowing that emotional eating and cravings are not the same thing. And so the treatment for them is not the same. Working with someone that can help you in that area, that's where you can begin to see improvements. And then you can make choices that you feel in better control of and that fuel your body. And when you fuel your body the way it wants to be fueled, that's where you're going to begin to see freedom. Freedom from your symptoms, freedom from guilt, freedom from propaganda, right? So I hope that you find this information helpful, and I'd love for you to type below in the comment section and say what part of this resonated with you. If you resonated with any of this and you've actually found freedom, share with the community. People read the comments. Let others know what has helped you. It's not always about what you eat. It doesn't matter what the health food is out there. Look deeper than that. Ask for help. We are here, and this wraps up the last part of the STAIN acronym. I hope that you found this information helpful, and stay tuned because we have more information coming your way on other topics.